The Veltari had been laughing at human mythology for 3 standard cycles now. Ambassador Crixivil clicked his mandibles in amusement as he reviewed the latest batch of human cultural submissions to the Galactic Archive. Dragons, unicorns, phoenix, birds that rose from ash. Such primitive nonsense from a species that had barely crawled from their gravity well. 50 years ago, look at this one, Nithara, Crixivil chittered to his aide, projecting a holographic image of a massive scaled beast breathing fire. They actually believed these creatures existed. No wonder they were so violent, living in constant fear of imaginary monsters. The Veltari delegation erupted in clicking laughter. Aboard their flagship, the Transcendent Wisdom, as it orbited Earth's moon, they were here for the quarterly Galactic Council session, where humanity had been petitioning for full membership status for months. The humans had impressive technology for such a young species, but their barbaric past and ridiculous folklore marked them as unsuitable for civilized galactic society. On Earth's surface, Director Raven Castellanos stared at the rejection notice with barely contained fury. The Galactic Council had denied humanity's membership application for the 4th time, citing cultural incompatibility and primitive mythological foundations unsuitable for rational galactic discourse. Castellanos crushed the data pad in her augmented grip, the titanium frame cracking like a walnut. Her second in command, Colonel Pike Ironhand, watched impassively from across the war room beneath Geneva's United Earth Defense Headquarters. They think our myths make us weak, Castellanos said, her voice deadly quiet. They mock our dragons and legends as the fantasies of primitives. Maybe they should learn where those myths came from. Ironhand replied, his scarred face grim. Above, Bem, in the sterile corridors of the Lunar Research Station, Dr. Evelyn Stormwright made the discovery that would change everything. The xenogeologist had been analyzing mineral samples from a Mars expedition when her scanners detected something impossible buried beneath Olympus mints. The readings were massive, a structure nearly 2 kilometers long, composed of materials that shouldn't exist, organic compounds that had been fossilized for millennia, but retaining cellular integrity that defied explanation. The shape was unmistakable. Even buried under tons of Martian rock. It was serpentine, winged, ancient beyond measure. Director Castellanos, Stormwright's voice crackled over the emergency channel. You need to see this immediately. We found something on Mars, something that suggests our myths weren't myths at all. The transmission cut through the political posturing like a blade. Within hours, Castellanos was aboard the fastest ship in Earth's fleet, racing toward the Red Planet with a full archaeological team. The Veltari, monitoring human communications with typical arrogance, dismissed the expedition as another desperate attempt to find significance in their primitive history. They couldn't have been more wrong. As the human ships approached Mars, deep beneath Olympus mints, something stirred. Ancient sapses, dormant for eons, began firing. Massive muscles, preserved in ways that Earth science couldn't explain, started contracting. And in the deepest chambers of its hibernation, something that had slept since before humanity learned to make fire began to wake. The excavation proceeded with military precision. Castellanos had brought more than archaeologists. She brought engineers, xenobiologists, and a full battalion of Earth's finest soldiers. Something in Stormwright's initial readings had set off every survival instinct Castellanos possessed. When they broke through the final barrier, their lights illuminated scales the size of shield plates, each one gleaming with an inner fire that shouldn't exist. The creature was magnificent and terrible, its form matching every dragon myth humanity had ever conceived. But this was no legend, this was real, alien, and utterly massive. Director, whispered Lieutenant Scarlet Ashworth, her weapon trained on the motionless behemoth. What do we do? Before Castellanos could answer, the dragon's eyes opened. They burned like stars, ancient and intelligent, filled with a fury that had been building for millennia. The creature had been waiting, dreaming, planning its return. Above Mars, the Veltari delegation continued their mocking broadcasts, unaware that humanity's primitive myths were about to become their worst nightmare. They had no idea that dragons were real, that they had once ruled the stars, and that one of them was about to remind the galaxy why ancient civilizations had feared them. The dragons were shook Olympus mints to its foundations and across the solar system. Humanity prepared for a war they didn't even know was coming. The dragon's awakening shattered every geological sensor on Mars. Olympus mints convulsed as the ancient creature uncurled from its millennia-long slumber, its massive form breaking free from fossilized restraints that had held it since the planet died. Director Castellanos and her team scrambled backward as sections of the excavation tunnel collapsed, their helmet lights barely illuminating the nightmare emerging before them. The dragon's head alone was the size of a battle cruiser, covered in scales that shimmered with an otherworldly energy. When it spoke, the words bypassed their translators entirely, burning directly into their minds with telepathic force, such small inheritors. The voice thundered inside their skulls. You carry the scent of the first makers, yet you know nothing of what you have awakened. Lieutenant Ashworth opened fire instinctively, her plasma rifle spitting superheated death at the creature's massive eye. The bolt struck true, but scattered harmlessly across scales that absorbed energy. Like a black hole devours light, the dragon's attention fixed on her with predatory interest. Amusing, the children of Earth still possess courage. Fall back, Castellanos roared, her own weapon joining the fuel barrage. All units, tactical retreat to the surface. The dragon's laughter was a sound like worlds cracking. It rose to its full height, wings unfurling to span the entire excavation chamber. Each wing beat generated hurricane-force winds that sent humans tumbling like insects. But instead of pursuing them, the creature turned its attention upward, toward the Martian surface, and beyond that, to the space above. On the transcendent wisdom, Ambassador Crixville was reviewing more human mythology files. When his ship's sensors detected massive seismic activity on Mars, the readings were impossible energy, signatures that defied known physics. Nithara, are the humans conducting weapons tests on that dead world? He clicked dismissively. Before his aide could respond, something erupted from Mars's surface. The dragon burst from Olympus Mons like a comet of flesh and fury, its wings catching solar wind as it took flight through the thin Martian atmosphere. It was impossible no biological creature could survive in space, let alone achieve escape velocity through muscle power alone. Yet there it was, ancient magic and alien science combined in a form that violated every law the Veltari understood. The creature's destination was unmistakable. It was heading directly for the Veltari fleet. Battle stations, Crixville shrieked, his previous amusement replaced by panic. All ships, target that, whatever it is. The Veltari war cruisers opened fire with weapons that could crack moons. Particle beams, gravity torpedoes, and quantum disruptors filled space with deadly light. Every shot that struck the dragon simply vanished, absorbed in the scales that had been forged in the hearts of dying stars. The dragon reached the first cruiser, the Rational Discourse, and wrapped its massive claws around the hull. The ship's shields failed instantly, its armor crumpling like paper. With casual contempt, the dragon tore the vessel in half, atmosphere venting in crystalline clouds as 700 Veltari died in the vacuum. Your species mocks the dragons of Earth. The creature spoke directly into every Veltari mind in the fleet. You know nothing of dragons. We are not myth. We are consequence. The second ship, logical supremacy, tried to ram the dragon at full speed. The creature caught it like a thrown stone, its claws piercing the bridge. Through the twisted metal, Crixville could see the dragon's eye. Vast and intelligent and utterly merciless, we seeded 1,000 worlds with our young. Some slept, some died, some became legend. But all remembered their purpose, the dragon's breath. Weapon wasn't fire, it was something far worse. Concentrated stellar plasma erupted from its maw. Temperatures that existed only at the core of suns. The logical supremacy didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. Molecular bonds breaking down into component atoms that scattered like stardust. Crixville found himself floating in space, his environmental suit the only thing keeping him alive. Around him, the wreckage of his mighty fleet drifted in smoking ruins. 3 cruisers destroyed in as many minutes by a creature that shouldn't exist. The dragon's attention turned to him, and he felt its ancient intelligence studying him like a specimen. You will return to your council, it commanded. You will tell them that the dragons have returned. Tell them that humanity's myths were warnings, not fantasies. Below, on Mars, Director Castellanos watched the battle through her ship's sensors with growing understanding. The dragon hadn't killed. Her teammate had been testing them, evaluating them, and now it was sending a message to the galaxy. Colonel Ironhand, she said into her communicator, recall all Earth fleets, every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. If there's one dragon, there might be others. And I have a feeling the galaxy is about to learn exactly why humanity survived when so many other species didn't. The Dragon released Ambassador Crixville, allowing his emergency beacon to carry him to safety. As the Veltari survivor drifted away, the creature turned its gaze toward Earth, its expression unreadable. The children have grown strong, it mused. Perhaps they are ready to learn their inheritance. The first battle was over. The war was just beginning. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session within 6 hours of the Mars incident. Ambassador Crixville, his carapace still bearing scorch marks from his destroyed flagship, stood before the assembled delegates with barely controlled terror. The circular chamber buzzed with agitated chatter from dozens of species, their various forms of anxiety creating a cacophony of clicks, chirps, and subsonic rumbles. The creature spoke to us, Crixville reported, his mandibles trembling. It destroyed 3 of our most advanced cruisers without sustaining damage. It claimed that humanity's myths were warnings. High Arbiter Kenthros, a crystalline being whose form refracted light into prismatic patterns, pulsed with skeptical energy. Impossible. Biological entities cannot survive in hard vacuum, let alone generate the energy outputs you describe. Then explain my dead crews. Crixville shrieked, projecting holographic footage of the battle. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the Dragon tore through Veltari vessels like tissue paper. On Earth, Director Castellanos was conducting her own emergency meeting. The war room beneath Geneva buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from observatories. Across human space, the Dragon hadn't returned to Mars. It had vanished entirely, leaving only the wreckage of the Veltari fleet as evidence of its existence. Seismic sensors are detecting movement on 17 different worlds, Dr. Stormwright reported, her face pale with exhaustion. All sites match the energy signature we found on Mars. Director, I think there are more of them. A lot more. Colonel Ironhand studied the tactical displays with a soldier's eye. If they're waking up across the galaxy, we need to know why, and we need to know what they want with us. Before Castellanos could respond, her communications array lit up with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. The holographic projection of High Arbiter Kenthros filled the center of the room, its crystalline form radiating barely contained panic. Director Castellanos, the Arbiter began without preamble. Your species is hereby ordered to provide all information regarding these Dragon entities. The Council demands immediate access to your mythological databases and any archaeological evidence you've discovered. Castellanos smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Interesting. Yesterday you rejected our membership because our myths were primitive fantasies. Today you're demanding access to those same myths. What changed? Do not play games with us, human. 3 Veltari cruisers are destroyed, and witnesses claim the creature referenced Earth specifically. If your species has awakened some ancient weapon, Castellanos interrupted. You mean the dragons you've been mocking for 3 years? The primitive nonsense that made us unsuitable for civilized society. The Arbiter's form flashed with angry light. This is not the time for. The transmission cut off abruptly as every sensor in the war room screamed warnings. Above Earth's atmosphere, space itself was tearing open. The Dragon emerged from what could only be described as a dimensional rift, its massive form blotting out stars. As it approached Earth's orbital defense platforms, this wasn't the same creature. From Mars, this one was larger, older, its scales bearing the patina of eons. When it spoke, its voice carried across every communication frequency simultaneously. Children of the first makers, I am Pirith Gar, eldest of the deep sleep. The time of awakening has come. Earth's orbital defense platforms opened fire immediately. Lance batteries that could crack asteroids focused their fury on the approaching Dragon. Pirith Gar didn't even acknowledge the assault. The energy beams simply vanished into its scales, like drops of water into an ocean. Do not fear, young ones. We are not your enemies. We are your inheritance. The Dragon landed on Luna Base 7 with earth-shaking impact, its claws carving trenches in the reinforced titanium landing pads. The base's automated defenses continued their futile barrage, while panicked personnel evacuated through emergency tunnels. Castellanos watched the scene unfold with growing realization. The Dragon wasn't attacking, it was waiting, testing their responses, measuring their capabilities, just like the creature on Mars had done. Stand down all weapons, she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos in the war room. All units, cease fire immediately. Director, are you insane? Colonel Ironhand protested. That thing could sterilize the entire moon. It could have sterilized Earth from orbit, Castellanos replied. But it didn't. It landed on Luna Base 7, our most advanced xenological research facility. That's not a coincidence. As if responding to her words, Pirithgar's massive head turned toward Earth, ancient eyes fixing on their location despite being separated by thousands of kilometers of vacuum. Wise, little inheritor, you begin to understand. Come to US, brain, your warriors and your scholars. It is time you learn the truth of your species across the galaxy. More rifts began opening. On Kelthara Prime, home to the militaristic Bruin Empire, a silver-scaled dragon emerged and spoke of ancient oaths. On Vexenolar, the hegemony's capital world, a golden worm manifested in the heart of their greatest city and proclaimed judgment had come. Each dragon carried the same message: the children of Earth were no longer alone, and the galaxy would learn the true meaning of the myths they had mocked out in the Galactic Council chambers. Panic spread like a plague. 18 separate dragon sightings reported across civilized space, each one immune to conventional weapons, each one referencing humanity's special status. High Arbiter Kenthros pulsed with desperate energy as he issued emergency orders. All fleets are to converge on the Sol system immediately if the humans have unleashed these creatures. Then humanity must be contained before they destroy us all. But even as the words left his crystalline form, Kenthros knew they were empty threats. The dragons had already demonstrated that conventional weapons were useless. If humanity truly commanded these creatures, then the balance of galactic power had shifted overnight. Director Castellanos prepared for the most important meeting in human history, unaware that she was about to discover her species had never been alone in the universe, and that their greatest legends were about to become the galaxy's worst nightmare. Director Castellanos stood on the observation deck of the UES Defiant as it approached Luna Base 7, watching the dragon Pirithgar through reinforced transparent aluminum. The creature had made no aggressive moves in the 12 hours since its arrival, simply waiting with predatory patience. Long-range sensors are picking up massive fleet movements. Colonel Iron Hand reported from the bridge. The Galactic Council is mobilizing everything they have. 17 different species, over 3,000 ships. They're calling it Operation Cleansing Light. Castellanos didn't take her eyes off the dragon. They're coming to eliminate us before we can unleash more dragons. Typical council thinking destroy the problem rather than understand it. The Defiant docked with Luna Base 7's emergency berth, and Castellanos found herself walking through corridors still scarred by the dragon's landing. The creature had been careful. She realized its claws had carved perfect trenches that avoided all critical systems. It knew exactly what it was doing. Pirithgar waited in the base's main cargo bay, its massive form somehow fitting into a space that should have been far too small. Reality seemed to bend around the dragon, dimensions folding in ways that hurt to contemplate. Director Castellanos, the dragon spoke directly into her mind. You seek answers, we shall provide them. Though the truth will burden your species with terrible responsibility, we're already burdened. Castellanos replied aloud. The galaxy wants to destroy us because of you. The least you can do is explain why. The dragons. Laughter was like distant thunder. They do not fear us because of what we are. They fear us because of what you are becoming. Ancient memories flooded Castellanos' mind visions of Earth millions of years ago. When the planet burned under alien skies, she saw the first dragons, descending from space, not as conquerors, but as gardeners. They had found early hominids and done something to them, something that unlocked potential hidden in human DNA. Your species carries our genetic legacy, Pirithgar explained. We made you to be what we could not: adaptable, innovative, capable of growth beyond even our ancient wisdom. But that gift came with a price. The vision shifted, showing human civilization developing at impossible speed. Every major breakthrough, every technological leap, every moment of inspiration throughout history, all of it guided by genetic programming. Left by the dragons, the other species stagnate after achieving spaceflight. The dragon continued. They become comfortable, predictable, but humans never stop growing, never stop reaching, and that terrifies them. So you're saying we're some kind of genetic experiment? Castellanos asked, her voice tight with anger. You are our children, and now the galaxy moves to destroy you before you reach your potential. Alarm screamed throughout Luna Base 7 as the leading edge of the Galactic Council fleet dropped out of hyperspace, 3,000 ships arranged in perfect battle formation, their combined firepower capable of cracking worlds. Admiral Vexthal of the Hegemony commanded the operation from his flagship, the Final Arbitration. The insectoid commander had built his career on swift, overwhelming force. He intended to glass every human world before the dragons could respond. All ships, prepare for simultaneous bombardment. Vexthal chittered into his communicator. Earth, Mars, Luna, everything dies. We cannot allow these creatures to spread. The first salvo came without warning. Quantum torpedoes and antimatter charges erupted across human space, targeting every inhabited world simultaneously. Mars's colonial domes shattered under the assault, their populations of 50,000 vaporized in microseconds. The Europa mining stations vanished in nuclear fire. Titan's atmospheric processors exploded like miniature suns. On Earth, continental defense grids activated delayed. The planet's surface erupted in a chain of explosions that lit up the night sky. New York, London, Beijing, humanity's greatest cities became craters in the span of minutes. But Earth's people didn't die quietly. The human fleet, though vastly outnumbered, threw itself at the invaders with berserker fury. Captain Elena Vasquez of the destroyer Vindictive rammed her ship directly into a hegemony battlecruiser. Her final transmission a string of curses that would have impressed a pirate. The cruiser Righteous Anger held its position until its reactor went critical, taking 6 enemy ships with it in a fusion bloom that briefly outshone the sun. Colonel Pike Iron Hand led the Luna base defense personally, his soldiers fighting room by room as Council troops breached the outer hull. His last stand came in the medical bay, where he single-handedly held off a Veltari assault squad while evacuating wounded civilians. The Xenos found his body surrounded by 17 of their own, dead, his combat knife still embedded in the last attacker's throat. But for every human ship destroyed, every base overrun, every life lost, the dragons watched and remembered as Admiral Vexthal prepared to deliver the killing blow to Luna. Base 7, Perethgar rose to his full height and spoke a single word that resonated across dimensions, ENOUGH. Space around Luna Base 7 exploded with incoming dragons. Not one or two, but dozens ancient worms awakening from eons of slumber, emerging from hidden layers across the galaxy. Each one burned with fury at the slaughter they had witnessed. The dragon called Voimon materialized directly above the final arbitration, its breath weapon not fire, but concentrated entropy itself, reducing the kilometer-long flagship to its component atoms. Stellar Claw dove through the Veltari formation like a living missile, its claws trailing quantum fire that ignited entire squadrons. You have murdered our children. Perethgar's voice thundered across every communication frequency. Now face the consequence of that choice. The dragons didn't just fight, they annihilated. Creatures that had slumbered since the galaxy was young, unleashed powers that defied comprehension. Reality warped around their fury, laws of physics bending to accommodate their wrath. But they were delayed to save the billions who had already died. Director Castellanos watched from Luna Base 7 as Earth burned below, her homeworld scarred by orbital bombardment. Humanity had lost more in one day than in all their previous wars combined. How many? She whispered. 4 billion dead, Perethgar replied, his mental voice heavy with ancient grief. The Council sought to genocide your species before you could claim your inheritance. They have succeeded beyond their nightmares. The dragons had awakened. Humanity's protectors had returned. But they had arrived late to prevent the greatest massacre in human history. The war had truly begun. The Battle of the Shattered Rings would be remembered as the day the galaxy learned why dragons had once ruled the stars. Admiral Vexthal's surviving fleet, barely 800 ships from the original 3,000, had retreated to the Kepler defense grid, a massive fortification built around a neutron star. The installation's gravitational weapons could tear apart planets, and its shields were powered by stellar matter itself. If anywhere could stand against the dragons, it would be here. Vexthal studied the tactical displays with compound eyes that reflected his terror. The dragons hadn't simply pursued his fleet, they had systematically hunted down every council ship that had participated in the bombardment of human worlds. 18 separate naval groups, eliminated one by one with surgical precision. Admiral, his communications officer chittered nervously. We're receiving surrender offers from the Altarian fleet and the Centauri Defense Force. They want to negotiate. Tell them that negotiations ended when they chose genocide. Vexthal replied, his mandibles clicking with determination. We fight here, or we die here. There is no third option. The dragon fleet emerged from hyperspace like an ancient nightmare, made manifest. 37 worms, each one the size of a dreadnought. their scales shimmering with energies that had been old when the universe was young. They moved in perfect formation, predators who had hunted together for millennia. HFY led them, his golden scales blazing like a captured star. Beside him flew HFY, the black dragon whose breath could unmake matter itself. HFY's silver form danced between dimensions, phasing in and out of reality with casual disdain for physics. Council fleets, HFY's voice resonated. Across all frequencies, you have chosen extinction over wisdom. We grant your request. The Kepler defense grid opened fire with everything it had. Gravitational lances that could collapse space-time itself focused on the approaching dragons. Particle beams powered by neutron star matter painted space with deadly light. Quantum torpedoes, weapons that existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously erupted. From thousands of launch tubes, the dragons didn't dodge. They absorbed. Each worm's scales drank energy like a thirsty desert drinks rain. The most powerful weapons in galactic civilization simply vanished into their hides, converted into raw power that made the dragons stronger. Gravitational attacks bent around them like water around stone. Quantum weapons struck and dissipated harmlessly. "Oh, your turn," rumbled HFY. The black dragon's breath wasn't fire, it was entropy made visible. A stream of absolute nothingness that unmade everything it touched. The first defense platform simply ceased to exist, its atoms forgetting how to maintain cohesion. The second platform tried to raise shields, but entropy cared nothing for such concepts. Where HFY's breath passed, space itself grew older and died. HFY dove into the heart of the fleet formation, phasing through ship hulls as if they were mist. Each time the silver dragon materialized inside a vessel, it left devastation. In its wake, the heavy cruiser Inevitable Victory exploded from within as HFY's claws severed every power conduit simultaneously. The battleship Rational Conclusion broke apart when the dragon's passage destabilized its quantum core, but the council fleets weren't defenseless. Admiral Vextal had positioned his forces with the cunning of a veteran, using the neutron stars. Gravity well to accelerate projectiles to near-light speed. Kinetic impact of simple chunks of matter moving at relativistic velocities struck three dragons. With devastating force, Flameheart, a young red worm barely 3,000 years old, screamed as her left wing was shattered by a tungsten projectile. Moving at 90% light speed, she plummeted toward the neutron star's surface. Gravely wounded, Stormrider, caught between the converging kinetic barrages, took hits that cracked his armored hide and sent golden ichor streaming into space. "They bleed." Admiral Vextal transmitted triumphantly, "All ships, concentrate fire on the wounded." Once, the council forces pressed their advantage with desperate fury. Hundreds of ships focused their weapons on the injured dragons, pouring enough firepower to sterilize continents into concentrated beams. Flameheart's agonized roar echoed across dimensions as sustained bombardment began eating through her scales. But her pain awakened something in the other dragons that mortal species had forgotten. The true fury of creatures that had once burned civilizations to ash. HFY's response was primal, ancient, and absolutely devastating. The golden dragon's roar shattered the hulls of nearby ships through pure acoustic force. But that was just the beginning. His breath weapon, true dragon fire, plasma heated to temperatures that existed only in stellar cores, swept across the council formation. Like the sword of an angry god, 17 ships died in that first blast. Not destroyed, died. Their matter was converted directly to energy, creating fusion blooms that briefly outshone the neutron star itself. The heat was so intense that nearby vessels began melting despite their shields, their armor running like water. The other dragons answered their elder's call. Stormrider, his injuries forgotten in his rage, summoned lightning that danced between dimensions. Electricity that could arc across star systems struck dozens of ships simultaneously, overloading every system they possessed. Crews died at their posts as their own equipment turned against them, computers exploding in showers of sparks and metal. HFY began systematically unmaking the Kepler defense grid itself. Each gravitational weapon platform simply stopped existing as the black dragon's entropy breath washed over it. The neutron star's defensive ring, a construction project that had taken centuries to complete, dissolved like sugar in acid. The council fleet's formation collapsed into chaos. Ships collided with each other as they tried to escape the dragon's fury. The dreadnought Inevitable Logic rammed straight through its own escort destroyers in blind panic, its captain screams filling the communication channels. Admiral Vextal, watched his command disintegrating and made the only choice available to him, all ships. Ramming speed, he ordered, "If we're going to die, let's take some of these monsters with us." The final arbitration sister ship, the conclusive reasoning, accelerated directly toward BlackHFY at maximum burn. Its captain, Admiral Kethmos, armed every weapon system simultaneously not to fire, but to overload. The battleship became a guided missile, its reactor set to go critical on impact. BlackHFY met the sacrifice with respect, hovering motionless as the massive ship approached. At the last second, he spoke directly into Kethmos' mind. "Your courage honors your species, Admiral. We will remember." The conclusive reasoning struck the Dragon head-on, its reactor detonating with the force of a small star. The explosion lit up the entire system, briefly turning night to day on worlds light years away. When the plasma cleared, Kethmos was gone, but so was a significant portion of BlackHFY's right wing. The golden scales cracked and bleeding, enough dying, the wounded Dragon declared. "This battle is over." The surviving Council ships, fewer than 100 from the original 3,000, found themselves trapped in amber, suspended in time by draconic power that transcended physics. They couldn't move, couldn't fire, couldn't even think faster than the dragons allowed. "You came here to commit genocide." BlackHFY addressed the paralyzed fleets. "Instead, you have learned the price of awakening sleeping gods. Return to your worlds. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them that humanity is under our protection now." The dragons released their captives, allowing the battered survivors to limp away. Admiral Vexel's final arbitration was among those permitted to leave, but not before BlackHFY's final message burned itself into every crew member's mind. "The next fleet that threatens our children will not be shown such mercy." The battle of the Shattered Rings was over. The dragons had won decisively, but at a cost: 3 worms dead, 5 more wounded, and the galaxy's fear of them now matched only by their terror of humanity. The war was far from finished, but the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. The galaxy's elder races had awakened something they couldn't control, and now they would face the consequences of their choice to commit genocide. 6 months after the Battle of the Shattered Rings, the galaxy trembled on the edge of total war. Director Castellanos stood in the ruins of New Geneva, watching construction crews rebuild humanity's capital with materials provided by the dragons. The ancient beings had not only shared their technology, but had begun actively protecting human worlds, their presence turning refugee camps into fortress cities seemingly overnight. "The Galactic Council has issued an ultimatum," Colonel Ironhand reported, his scarred face grim. "All dragons must return to dormancy, or they'll deploy the void anchors." Castellanos felt her blood turn to ice. The void anchors were theoretical, weapons of mass extinction devices that could collapse local space-time and erase entire star systems from existence if the Council was desperate enough to build them. The galaxy itself was at stake. "How many do they have?" she asked. "Intelligence. Reports suggest 4 to 7 installations across the core worlds, each one capable of sterilizing a sphere of space 30 light years in diameter. If they activate them simultaneously," Ironhand's voice trailed off, "they'd rather destroy half the galaxy than let humanity claim its inheritance." Castellanos finished. Typical Council thinking. BlackHFY materialized beside them without warning, his golden scales still bearing scars from the neutron star battle. The dragon's presence no longer startled human personnel in 6 months. They had learned to work alongside creatures from their oldest legends. "The Council grows desperate," the dragon observed. "They have learned that conventional weapons cannot harm us, so they seek to unmake reality itself rather than accept change." "Can you stop the void anchors?" Castellanos asked. BlackHFY's ancient eyes reflected depths of wisdom and sorrow. "Not all of them. The weapons draw power from dimensional fractures we cannot seal quickly enough. If they activate simultaneously, even we will be consumed." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council's most desperate gambit neared completion. High Arbiter Kenthros stood in the command center of Nexus Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of all 4 to 7 void anchors. Each installation was a monument to civilized species' determination to prevent humanity from claiming what the dragons called their inheritance. "Final systems check," Kenthros commanded, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "If we're going to commit galactic suicide to stop these creatures, I want to be certain it will work." Admiral Vexel, still bearing the psychological scars of his defeat at the Shattered Rings, studied the tactical projections with compound eyes that reflected his haunted state. The targeting computers are locked onto every known dragon location. When we activate, they'll have perhaps 30 seconds before space-time collapse reaches them. And the human worlds. Collateral damage, Vexthal replied coldly. Earth, Mars. Every colony they've established all within the kill zones. We're not just stopping the dragons. We're finishing what we started, but the dragons had not been idle during the 6 months of tense standoff. While the council built their doomsday weapons, the ancient worms had been awakening something far older and more powerful than themselves. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in trenches that predated continental drift, the first clutch began to stir. These were not dragons, they were the beings that had created dragons. Entities so ancient that their true names were forbidden concepts that could shatter mortal minds. Simply by being spoken, Pirithgar felt his creator stirring and trembled. Despite his eons of experience, the Shaper's wake, he transmitted to his fellow dragons. The Council's desperation has roused those who should sleep until the universe ends. On Luna Base 7, now rebuilt as humanity's primary command center, Director Castellanos received reports that defied comprehension. Seismic activity beneath Earth's oceans registered energies that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Gravitational anomalies rippled outward from the deep Pacific, causing tidal effects on moons throughout the solar system. What the hell is down there? She demanded. Your grandparents, Pirithgar replied cryptically, the ones who made us to make you. They have slept since before your star was born. But the threat of galactic extinction has roused them. The ocean above the Pacific Trench began to boil as something vast rose from the deepest places of Earth. When it breached the surface, satellites around the world recorded an entity that defied every law of physics and biology. The Shaper was not reptilian like its dragon children, it was something far more primal, a living embodiment of creation itself. Its voice, when it spoke, caused quantum fluctuations throughout the solar system. The children played with forces beyond their comprehension. High Arbiter Kenthros felt that voice resonate through every crystal matrix in his body, a sound that bypassed physics entirely to speak directly to his consciousness. Around him, the command center systems flickered as reality itself struggled to accommodate the Shaper's presence. Impossible, he whispered. The energy readings. It's larger than our entire star system, but it was too late for second thoughts. The void anchors had reached full charge, their dimensional fractures spreading like cracks in reality itself. Space-time began to warp around each installation as they prepared to tear holes in existence, large enough to swallow entire civilizations. You would murder reality to preserve your fear. The Shaper observed. This cannot be permitted. The entity didn't attack the void anchors, it simply negated them across 4 to 7 star systems. Installations that had taken decades to build and enough resources to purchase entire worlds simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not dismantled, they became unthings. Concepts that reality forgot had ever been real. High Arbiter Kenthros watched in horror as his species' ultimate weapon vanished, like a childhood nightmare exposed to daylight. Status report. He screamed at his officers. What happened to the anchors, sir? His aide's voice was barely a whisper. The installations aren't responding. They're not destroyed according to our sensors. They never existed in the first place. The Shaper's attention turned toward the core worlds, and Kenthros felt the weight of judgment that had been building. Since the first dragon emerged from Mars, the Council species have chosen extinction over evolution, genocide over growth, fear over wisdom. Their time of dominance ends now. But instead of annihilation, the Shaper offered something unexpected: transformation. Its power washed over the core worlds, not destroying but changing the rigid caste systems that had defined galactic civilization for millennia began to crumble. Stagnant cultures found themselves compelled toward growth and adaptation. Species that had remained unchanged for eons discovered new possibilities within their own genetics. On Earth, Director Castellanos felt the change as well. Humanity's latent dragon-touched heritage activated fully, unlocking potentials that had been dormant since their species' creation. Enhanced intelligence, extended lifespans, the ability to interface directly with quantum technologies, all gifts that the dragons had always intended their children to possess. The trial is over, Pirithgar announced. The Shapers have judged and found humanity worthy of their inheritance. The galactic war that had threatened to destroy everything was ending not with conquest, but with evolution. The old order was passing away. replaced by something that neither purely dragon nor purely mortal, but a synthesis of both. But change, even positive change, would not come without cost. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's true inheritance wasn't just the dragon's protection. It was the responsibility to guide other species through the same transformation that had nearly destroyed them all. The turning point had arrived. Now came the hardest part, building a better galaxy from the ashes of the old one. 5 years after the Shaper's awakening, the galaxy bore little resemblance to its former self. Director Castellanos, now bearing the title Prime Coordinator of the Terran Synthesis, stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, watching construction crews from 17 different species working together to rebuild the galactic capital. Dragons flew alongside human shuttlecraft, their ancient wisdom guiding the installation of quantum infrastructure that would have been impossible under the old order. The transformation hadn't been gentle. 3 entire species, the Veltari, the Hegemony, and the Altarian Confederacy, had chosen extinction rather than evolution, their final acts destroying their own homeworlds in nuclear fire. They preferred death to admitting they had been wrong about humanity's place in the universe. But for every species that chose self-destructs, 2 more embraced the changes the Shapers had wrought. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia gave way to fluid cooperatives based on merit and innovation, rather than genetic predetermination. The stagnation that had characterized interstellar society was replaced by explosive growth in technology, art, and philosophy. The Andromedan expedition reports successful contact, Colonel Ironhand announced as he joined Castellanos at the viewport. His appearance had changed dramatically over the years. The Dragon Touch modifications had enhanced his already formidable physique while adding an otherworldly grace to his movements. 17 new species, all eager to join the synthesis. Castellanos nodded, her own transformation evident in eyes that held depths of knowledge no unmodified human could possess. The Shaper's gift hadn't just enhanced humanity's capabilities, it had awakened their dormant understanding of their true role in the cosmic order. "Any word from the deep expedition?" she asked. "Pirithgar's team has reached the galactic core. They've confirmed the old legends. There's an entire civilization of Shapers sleeping at the center of the galaxy. If we can wake them all, we could guide the evolution of every species in the local group." Castellanos finished. The dragon's original purpose, shepherding younger races toward their potential, could finally be fulfilled on a universal scale. Pirithgar's voice touched her mind from across the galaxy. The dragon's telepathic abilities enhanced by proximity to his creators, the sleeping Shaperster. Prime Coordinator, they are pleased with what their children have accomplished. The galaxy grows wise at last, but not everyone had embraced the new order peacefully. Admiral Vextel, his mind broken by witnessing powers beyond comprehension, had gathered the remnants of the old council fleets into a guerrilla force. Called the Purity Crusade, they struck as synthesis colonies and dragon-human cooperative ventures with fanatic determination, convinced that the galaxy's transformation was an aberration that had to be stopped. Speaking of the expedition, Ironhand continued, "We've received a priority transmission from the Perseus Arm. Vextel's forces have taken the Kepler Memorial Station hostage. They want to exchange the researchers for safe passage to the void between galaxies." Castellanos felt ancient fury stir within her, not her own emotion, but inherited rage from the dragons who had shaped her species. The Memorial Station housed survivors from the original genocide attempt, humans and aliens alike, who had learned to work together in the aftermath of near extinction. How many hostages? 3,000 researchers, their families and support staff. Vextel has them in the station's central core, surrounded by enough antimatter to vaporize the entire installation. The easy solution would be to send the dragons. Pirithgar and his kin could phase through the station's hull and eliminate the Crusaders before they could trigger their explosives. But Castellanos understood that some battles had to be won by the right people in the right way to send the right message. "Prep the synthesis," she ordered. "Full diplomatic envoy, but with military escort. If Vextel wants to make his final stand against evolution, let's give him the chance to surrender with dignity." The journey to Kepler Memorial took 18 hours, giving Castellanos time to review the files of everyone held hostage. Scientists from 6 different species, children born after the synthesis who knew only cooperation between dragons and mortals, elderly humans who remembered Earth before the bombardment. Each life represented the future Vextel was trying to destroy. The memorial station itself was a work of art, its crystalline spires and flowing organic curves representing the marriage of dragon aesthetics with human engineering. Built at the site of the old Kepler defense grid, it served as both research facility and monument to those who had died in the galaxy's transformation. Vexthal-S ships surrounded the station like a malignant growth jury-rigged vessel's hell, together by desperation and hatred, their crews consisting of species who couldn't accept that their time of dominance had ended. This is Admiral Vexthal of the Purity Crusade. The transmission crackled through the synthesis's communications. Hooray! Prime Coordinator Castellanos, you will order your dragon pets to stand down, or we will show the galaxy what happens to abominations who corrupt the natural order. Castellanos took the communication personally, her image appearing on every screen throughout Vexthal-S fleet. She had chosen to appear in her transformed state, her dragon-touched heritage visible in the golden flecks in her eyes, and the subtle scaling along her jawline that marked her as one of the first generation to fully embrace their inheritance. Admiral Vexthal, she said calmly, you're surrounded by forces you can't possibly defeat. Your crews are exhausted, your ships are failing, and your cause died the moment you chose genocide over dialogue. Surrender now, and I guarantee safe passage to any uninhabited world you choose. Lies. Vexthal-S response was nearly incoherent with rage. You're not human anymore. None of you are. You've let those monsters corrupt your species into something unnatural. We become what we were always meant to be. Castellanos replied. The question is whether you'll choose to evolve with us or die clinging to the past. Vexthal-S' answer came in the form of weapons fire. His ships opened up with everything they had. Particle beams and missile barrages focused on the synthesis. But the ship's dragon-inspired defenses absorbed the energy harmlessly, its living hull healing damage faster than the attackers could inflict it. The response was swift and decisive. Dragon-touched human pilots, their reflexes enhanced beyond normal limits, danced between the Crusader ships and fighters that moved like living things. They didn't destroy their opponents instead. They systematically disabled weapon systems and engines, leaving the enemy vessels helpless but intact. Within minutes, Vexthal-S fleet was neutralized. The Admiral himself was captured when his flagship's life support failed, his crew surrendering rather than suffocate in the vacuum. As he was brought aboard the synthesis in restraints, Castellanos met him in the docking bay. You could have been part of this, she said, gesturing to the mixed crews of humans and dragons working together seamlessly. Your species could have found their place in the new order. Vexthal-S compound eyes reflected only hatred and madness. We were perfect as we were. We didn't need your monstrous gifts. Perfection is stagnation, Castellanos replied. Growth is life. You chose death the moment you decided evolution was evil. But even as Vexthal was led away to imprisonment, his defeat marked more than the end of organized resistance to the synthesis. It represented the final victory of cooperation over conquest, evolution over stagnation, hope over fear. The hostages were freed unharmed, and many of Vexthal-S former crews chose to undergo the transformation they had fought against. Faced with the reality of the synthesis, not conquest, but cooperation, not domination, but mutual growth, most of the old order's remnants chose adaptation over extinction. Standing on Kepler Memorial's observation deck months later, Castellanos watched dragon hatchlings play with human children, their laughter echoing through corridors where armies had once fought to the death. The galaxy's future stretched before them not as conquerors or conquered, but as partners in an evolutionary dance that would span eons. Pirithgar landed beside her, the ancient dragon's golden scales catching the light of distant stars. The Shapers sleep again, he reported. Their work here is done. The galaxy chooses its own path now. And what path is that? Castellanos asked. The one your species was always meant to walk. The gardeners of consciousness, shepherds of evolution, bridges between what is and what could be. The dragons taught you to dream. Now you must teach others to dream as well. As if summoned by their conversation, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The synthesis expeditions had made contact with civilizations in Andromeda, the Magellanic Clouds, and the distant Whirlpool Galaxy. Each encounter brought new species into the growing confederation, new voices to the chorus of consciousness. That humanity and dragons had begun. The myths that the Galactic Council had mocked stories of dragons and heroes, of transformation and transcendence, had proven to be prophecies rather than fantasies. Humanity had inherited the stars not through conquest, but through the simple act of becoming worthy of their inheritance. And in the deep places between galaxies, where space grew thin and reality wore gossamer veils, the Shapers watched their children spread across the cosmos. The universe itself was evolving, consciousness awakening in forms and places that had never dreamed before. The age of stagnation was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun. In the end, they had mocked humanity's myths until those myths became the foundation of a new reality. Dragons soared between the stars once more. But now they were not conquerors, they were teachers, guides, and partners in the greatest adventure consciousness had ever undertaken. The galaxy had learned to dream, and in dreaming, it had learned to grow.